Whether you think so or not, Outlander is far and away the best TV show STARZ has ever produced. That's why it didn't really surprise me that a spin-off show would be produced, and that's what Blood of My Blood is meant to be, a prequel to the original. Now, the first episode focuses mostly on how Brian Fraser and Ellen McKenzie, Jamie's parents, came to meet. We're also introduced to a young Murtaugh Fitzgibbons, as well as a young Dougal and Colin McKenzie, which I thought was interesting. In addition, we saw briefly a young Jocasta Cameron, as well as young Angus and Rupert, all characters from the original show. Now, the first episode did what I thought was a pretty good job of tending to the outstanding business from the original show, wherein Jamie's people are concerned specifically. As I mentioned before, we saw how his parents met. We saw Murtaugh and Jocasta engage with one another, which, if you've been watching the OG show, then you know that Jocasta was rather unhappily married to John, a much older man, but that after he passed, the pair were romantic in America before Murtaugh's death. You also know from the OG show that Murtaugh at one time also cared deeply for Ellen, gifting her bracelets made of tusk of a boar he killed on a hunt, the very hunt we got a chance to see in this episode, or at least the beginnings of. We also see in this episode the incident that positioned the Grants and the Mackenzies at odds, a feud that is mentioned early in season 1 of the original show. Now, the show ends introducing us to Claire's parents, Henry Beecham and Julia Morriston, both of them in Britain's military during World War I. And while on holiday, having left Claire with her uncle, the pair get into a car accident in the Highlands, which forces them to continue on foot until Julia is ultimately lost to him, accidentally traveling through the stones at Craignadoon. And remember, in the original series, it is said that Claire's parents died in a car accident. And we've now seen that accident in this episode, so we know that in fact they didn't die. We also know that Julia goes through the stones at the end of this episode, and I'm pretty sure that somehow Henry will follow. So given that fact, and the fact that it is said that Claire's parents died in the accident, that they never returned to their own time. Now, overall, I'd give this episode a 70%, or a 7.0 if you're thinking IMDb score. Look, it's clear that STARZ intends to do with Outlander, its most popular show, what HBO did with Game of Thrones. And I personally thought this show could have waited just a bit longer so that OG Outlander could go ahead and finish first, but here we are. And one has to wonder if this show can match the epic tone of the original, because sometimes you can only catch lightning in a bottle the one time, but I guess we shall see. And though this episode was feature length, like I said, I liked the fact that the show immediately got to the business of showing us some of the things that were only mentioned in the original series, things that, through character dialogue, seem to have had some measure of importance as it pertained to who the characters ultimately became, so kudos to the writers for that. And I do think this show has a chance to be good, though I hope the writers are creative with these 4 characters as to not have them be too derivative of their children, who we've already seen in the original show. But what do you guys think?